Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bo from Brutal Commentary, and today I'll be breaking down our next matchup for UFC Mexico City. In this matchup, we have Macy Chiasson taking on Ailín Pérez. There we go. I think this is a very interesting fight at women's bantamweight. Ailín Pérez is on a good five-fight win streak and taking on what on paper is her biggest or her toughest opposition to date. For Macy Chiasson, on a bit of a rough two-fight skid and looking to remain firmly in the top 6 of the women's bantamweight division. I think this fight really comes down to one essential question. How does Ailín Pérez deal with the size of Macy Chiasson? Because historically speaking, Chiasson is really a women's featherweight, but the UFC doesn't have a women's featherweight division anymore. So she's competing at bantamweight. But physically, she is one of the biggest fighters in the weight class. That size is going to matter here in this matchup, which, like I said, is kind of interesting. Now, I can't say this is the most exciting fight on the card. It doesn't blow me away off the on paper. But I think it could be a good scrap, and for nothing, I think both girls can put on a show if with the right matchup. But with that said, let's look at our two fighters. Starting with Ailín Pérez. She's currently 12-2 as a professional. And as I mentioned before, she is on a 5-5 win streak, so she's 5-0 in her last 5 fights. Looking at this win streak, she decisions Ashley Evans Smith, Lucy Polidova. All right, there we go. Polidova, decision Jocelyn Edwards, which has aged very well. Submitted Daria Zelenstiakova, and then most recently, he won a decision against Carol Hossa back at UFC 311. So, been a while since Perez has fought. She hasn't fought since January of last year. But still, on a good momentum in her physical prime at 31, and has really kind of figured out her bread and butter and has used it to great effect. Now, looking at Macy Chiasson, she's currently 10-5 as a professional, 2-3 in her last 5 fights. Her latest fight was 3.5 years ago, where she got up-kicked to the liver by Irene Aldana in a fight where Chiasson was winning, but eventually Aldana was able to land that perfect shot. Like I said, the up kick to the liver, something we've never seen before, and she won. Now, again, that was 3.5 years ago. After that, Chiasson didn't come back to the octagon until almost 2 years ago, where she submitted Pani Kianzai in a rematch, then won a TKO against Mayra Bueno Silva back at UFC 303. That's Chiasson's last win. Since then, she's now on a 2-fight skid. Last May, she got decisioned by Ketlen Vieira, where Vieira was simply the bigger woman in there and out wrestled Chiasson for a good 3 rounds. And then most recently at UFC 320, which was last October, lost a competitive decision to Yana Santos, where Chiasson simply got outworked. So, like I said, bit of a rough sketch, but I would think on paper, Chiasson should be the best opponent Ailín Pérez has fought. And it'll be an interesting test to see if Perez can deal with the size and skill of Chiasson. But with that said, let's get down to the breakdown. Starting with Macy Chiasson. When her weight cuts go well, and that's a big if, she is a dangerous fighter. She's long, tall. She uses her reach effectively. On the feet, she throws straight shots can overwhelm opponents when she finds rhythm. If Chiasson gets space to strike, she can build offense quickly. But she's also good at close range. She has good close quarter knees, good slashing elbows. You saw that with Bueno Silva. That's how she won the fight. A nasty elbow that cut right above the eyebrow of Bueno Silva. And what is it? Chiasson, it's not that she's just tall, she fights tall, but also she has pretty good jiu-jitsu. Now, I know I said she got out-wrestled by Ketlen Vieira, and that is true. But usually speaking, Chiasson has pretty good jiu-jitsu. Like I said, she submitted Pani Kianzai with relative ease, got the back take, got the rear naked choke pretty quickly. And against Bueno Silva, Chiasson was able to handle the guard game of one of the better submission artists in the division of Bueno Silva. Hell, even during her fight with Irene Aldana, Chiasson was winning the majority of that fight with her grappling. So, it's not that she has good distance striking and good close quarter striking, but she's also got pretty good grappling herself. She also does have strong cardio, again, when the cut goes well, when it goes properly, that's just the biggest hindrance in her career, unfortunately. If there was a women's featherweight division, she'd do much better, but there isn't, and so she has to cut down the bantamweight. And she's missed weight a few times. And especially with this 2-fight skid where Vieira again struggled. She struggled with grappling control, and against Santos, she had moments. She even won the third round, but ultimately just got outworked. And Chiasson has shown she can be frustrated at times. If she doesn't get space to strike, her output can dip, and when she's forced to fight off her back foot or from bottom position, she hasn't always shown the best urgency, or just simply is stuck there. Plus, there are moments I've seen where she has fight IQ moments where she doesn't always make the most effective decision in transitions. So while the physical tools are there, consistency has been an issue for sure. Now, on the flip side, you got Ailín Pérez, who is very gritty, persistent, and a wrestler to her core. Pérez has shown very good chain wrestling. If the first takedown doesn't work, she'll go for a second. If that doesn't work, she adjusts to a body lock. She's comfortable making it a grind. She embraces it. And once Pérez is on top, she's pretty good staying busy. Good ground and pound, good positional awareness, not just lay and pray. I mean, you saw with like Celestiakova, where Pérez had good top control, good ground pound, and even was able to position herself to get the arm triangle. And so it's shown, Pérez has good top game grappling. And, Pérez doesn't even need clean entries. She just needs to close distance and stay attached to her opponents. And plus, Pérez's biggest strength, I would say, like I said, is her persistence. She's not the most explosive takedown artist, but she's pretty damn persistent. And against a tall striker like Chiasson, that's exactly the type of game plan I think Pérez is going to need. Another factor is cardio. Because Pérez has shown she can maintain wrestling pressure over 3 rounds, and a fight that involves repeated clinch battles like this, that becomes critical. Now, this is the X factor for me, the size of Chiasson. Because besides Jocelyn Edwards, I can't think of anyone else that Ailín Pérez has fought that's going to match the size of Macy Chiasson. Now, you could argue maybe Jocelyn Edwards is heavier. I could see that, but still, Chiasson is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, opponent Pérez has fought. And that matters in 2 ways. First, can Pérez close distance effectively against a long striker? And second, if she gets taken down, can she hold Chiasson? Now, you look at the Jocelyn Edwards fight, she was able to do that repeatedly. And while, here's the flip side to that. Chiasson has better jiu-jitsu than Jocelyn Edwards, but on the flip side, Jocelyn Edwards hits harder than Macy Chiasson. So it's kind of a give or take in this sort of situation. Because historically, it's not easy to control someone who's just naturally bigger than you, especially for the division. Now, like I said, we've seen Ketlen Vieira hold Chiasson down, but Vieira is also physically large for bantamweight, and she's kind of a women's featherweight too, let's be real. But, and even for Pérez, Pérez isn't small, it's just she's not of the same physicality as Vieira as well. And, she is going to be the shorter fighter, right? Because Chiasson 5'11" to 5'5", yeah, she's going to be so much bigger, or at least taller. So I think this fight hinges on whether Pérez's wrestling technique and persistence can overcome the size disparity. Plus, I got to talk about the elevation, especially in this fight, because I think Chiasson's performance often correlates with how her weight cuts go. If the cut is tough, that can impact the cardio. At elevations, that becomes even more noticeable. Because I can see if Chiasson fades slightly in rounds 2 and 3, Pérez's wrestling pressure becomes significantly more effective. And on the other hand, let's say Chiasson makes the weight comfortably, right? There's no hiccups. And, she's comfortable. She feels strong. Her physical tools could create real problems, especially early. So this is one of those fights where I don't think I truly know how this is going to go at times until Friday for the weigh-ins. But just stylistically, this is a striker versus grinder type matchup. Chiasson wants space. Pérez wants pressure. If this stays at range, Chiasson's likely going to win the exchanges. She's longer. She can hit first. She can keep Pérez at the end of her punches. But if Pérez collapses that space and forces clinch battles repeatedly, the fight can change completely. Because Chiasson has shown she can be outworked when she doesn't control distance, and Pérez thrives in those messy, grinding exchanges. In over 3 rounds, sustained wrestling pressure often wins minutes. So, while I think Chiasson has a path here, if she can keep this standing, use her reach, and avoid extended grappling sequences or use her grappling to get back up, I think she can win this fight. But when I weigh everything, the recent scale, the weight cut factor, the altitude, and Perez's persistent wrestling, I keep coming back to control. Oh, if Perez can get takedowns and hold position for extended stretches of time, she wins rounds. And Chiasson has shown she can be frustrated and outworked when forced to fight off her back. So, for my official prediction, I got to go with Ailín Pérez, and I'm going to pick her via decision in this fight. She is mostly a decision machine, besides the submission to, excuse me, Zaleskyakova. She's not really shown that much aptitude for a finish, but I think she's going to use good chain wrestling, good top control, and sustained pressure to neutralize Chiasson's size and edge out rounds. So, once again, I'm going to pick Ailín Pérez, and I'm going to pick her via decision. But with that being said, I have been Bo from Brutal Commentary. I thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below on who you think's going to win. But until then, stay calm, stay respectful, and enjoy the violence. See y'all next time.